Okay, Breakneck through the Bible, class 2017-2018, class number 6. So last week, Monday night, we had the Epstein wedding up in Lakewood, New Jersey, the Epstein-Harris wedding. And thanks God the newlyweds are doing well. They were back here for the weekend, and they are now landed back in New York, in LaGuardia, and they're back there. So Mazel Tov to Benjamin and Kayla Epstein, and may we all share many simchas together. Okay, so last week we were together, right, which was 2 weeks ago. We talked about the tree, right? The tree not listening, the earth not listening to God. In day number 3, when God told the earth to create a tree that actually tasted like a fruit, right, and produced fruit as well. Instead, what happened was the earth only produced a tree that produced fruit, not a tree that actually went ahead and tasted like a fruit. And we said, why did the tree not listen to God?
Because it didn't obey. The land didn't obey.
Right, it didn't obey, right, but why did the tree not listen to God?
Because the earth had to have an element of free will, so that man who came from the earth.
Oh, so very good, right? So we said that since man, right, is created from the dirt, right, and so therefore man, in essence, is that he has free will. So therefore, the dirt, right, that makes up our physicality, it makes up who we are, right? So the earth itself has to also have an idea, or have to be able to have the capacity of having free will, so to speak, right? Because it's an angel that does what God wants, right? But therefore, it has to have the ability to not to listen to God. And therefore, when God says, "Go ahead and create," like go ahead and to be a earth, produce a tree that tastes like fruit as well as fruit, the earth did not listen.
The earth has freedom, it's alive?
And so it means the angel over the earth. Right? And again, any of these objects, right, every object has an angel. Right? The Talmud says there is no blade of grass that will grow unless an angel hits it and says grow. Right? So if you walk by my house, you see the angels in my front yard are sleeping.
No, they just need the sprinklers.
Right, so no, I have a sprinkler system, but you have to turn it on. No, but that helps too. No, but really, it's all covered by shade, so you need to get grass that grows in the shade. But anyway, right. So the Talmud says there is no blade of grass that grows that doesn't have an angel hitting and say grow. And so so all these objects have an angel that is over it. Okay, so therefore, so we go ahead and so that's why the earth, right, quote unquote, not listening to God, right, and so therefore it went and it produced a tree that produces fruit, but was not a fruit by itself. Okay, so now we up to day number 4. Okay, day number 4, right, chapter 1, verse number 14. Chapter 1, verse number 14. Kenny, you want to read?
Sure. God said, "Let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heaven, to separate between them the day and the night, and they shall serve as signs, and for festivals, and for days and years. And they will serve as luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to shine upon the earth." And it was so. And God made 2 great luminaries, the greater luminary to dominate the day, and the lesser luminary to dominate the night, and the stars. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to dominate by day and by night, and to separate between the light and the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, a 4th day.
Excellent. So what happened in day number 4?
Skies.
Day and night.
Okay, God kind of sort of, we say, turns on the chandeliers. Okay, right. And what does He do? What does He produce? What does He put in the sky?
Sun, moon, and stars.
Sun, moon, and stars. That is incorrect. Good try.
After all, why would it be right?
Right. Why would you think? Come on, Kenny. Right. So what does God tell the earth to produce, or to put, or to make? Right. Not the earth. Right.
Well, he said earlier to create its own seed.
Right. Okay. Right. Now up to day 4. Right. And so it says, okay, we need to get some lights on in this place. Right. So what does He do?
He creates the sun.
He creates two great luminaries. What are the two great luminaries?
Sun and the moon.
Sun and the moon. Okay, so he creates only the sun and the moon.
Okay,
Oh,
so does
yeah,
that mean
because
the
it's
scientists are
dominating
wrong?
light.
The sun came after the Earth?
No, that's exactly what the Torah says. The sun came after the earth.
It did.
Yeah. Right? It's not a problem, right? God hung up the sun and the moon, right? And he originally created the sun and the moon as the two great luminaries. Period. No stars. No stars.
Why
Stars
not?
are galaxies.
Why not?
Why not no stars? Because there was no reason for stars.
The universe wasn't here?
What?
There was no reason.
Universe
There was no
wasn't here
reason.
yet?
There was no reason for the stars.
So there was no galaxy.
Correct. I mean, there might have been galaxies, but no stars
So
in
the
the
Earth
galaxies.
predates the universe?
So what happened was, right, when God says, what happened was God created these two great luminaries, right, equal size, right, the sun and the moon, right, interesting, right, sun and the moon.
It's not equal size. One is smaller. The moon is smaller.
No. Oh,
Created
okay. Oh, they were created equal.
Oh.
You see, let's read it. You have to read. You have to read the Torah a little carefully.
Okay.
Okay, right. Let's take a look. Right, let's go back to chapter 1, verse number 14. So what does it say? God said, "Let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heavens to separate between the day and the night, and they shall serve as signs and for festivals and for days and for
The
years."
universe was already
Okay,
there.
right. Universe is there, not a problem. And God says, "Let's create a sun, two great luminaries." Okay, two great luminaries, a moon and a sun. Okay, period. Right, and then what happened? Then that's what happened. And then the verse number 15, they shall serve as luminaries in the firmament of the heavens to shine upon the earth, and it was so. And that's what it says in verse number 16. And God made the two great luminaries. God made the two great luminaries. So far, so good. How many luminaries are there? Two. All of a sudden, in verse number 16, right, what does it say? The greater luminary to dominate the day, and the less luminary to dominate the night, and the stars. All of a sudden, we're talking about two great luminaries, right? We got two luminaries. We got a sun and we got a moon. All of a sudden now, the first time you hear about this is in verse 16, right? All of a sudden you start hearing that, wait a second, there's a greater one and a lesser one, right? So now they're two different sizes. Up to now, how many? They were the same size, right? Two great luminaries.
Yeah.
Right? Luminaries, right? It was plural, so it's minimum plural is two. Right? So then it goes ahead, and now you have the sun and the moon. Right? You got the sun and moon that are the same size. And the sun and the moon are the same size. Right? And all of a sudden now you have a greater one and a lesser one. You have a bigger one, you have a smaller one. And you get the stars thrown in. So what happens?
Moon wasn't happy.
So some of the moon was
The
missing.
luminary of the night wasn't happy.
What did you say?
Some of the moon taken apart and became stars.
No. So what happened was like this. Right? So what happens is you go ahead and you have the sun and the moon. Two great luminaries. And all of a sudden the moon says to God,
So happy.
right, it's not so good. Why? Because how could you have two kings, right? Two kings sharing the same crown. Right? I mean, you're following, right? You have two kings. You have a moon and you have a sun and a moon. These two great luminaries, and how could they go ahead? Right? And how could they be sharing?
How could they be
Right?
equal?
How could they be equal? How could you have two right? How could you have two equals? And God says to the moon, you know what, you are absolutely right.
And you lose.
Make yourself smaller. Okay, make yourself smaller. And so the moon shrunk. Okay, the moon shrunk. And what happened was, as the moon shrunk, now all of a sudden there's a problem. What's the problem? It's hard to see at night. So what does God have to do? He has to add the stars. And that's how you have, and therefore, and so then God created the stars.
But that only explains sun and the moon and the stars. How about the other ones?
What do we mean other ones? They're all stars.
The galaxies.
Galaxies are stars.
Yeah, but isn't that the universe predate creation here?
The creation of what?
Of the earth and the moon and the sun?
No.
Or were we first in creation?
Well, again, right? This was first God created the sun and the moon, and then all these other things came into. Right? God now goes ahead and hangs them up in the sky.
Why do you call the sun and the moon kings?
Because, well, they rule over the earth, right? It means the sun gives us light by day, and the moon gives us light by night, right? So, okay, it's two kings. But what's interesting, right? Because the moon, has a tremendous effect on this world, right? Anyone know that?
The moon or the sun?
Both.
But the moon does too.
What is the effect of the moon?
Okay. Actually, I think the moon has more effect on the world than the sun does. I'll tell you why. Listen to me. Listen to my proof. Listen to the rabbi. Can I ask you a question? A woman has a cycle, and what decides how that cycle goes?
God.
Yeah, right through the moon.
That's why
Through
they
the
become,
moon?
that's
Yeah.
why they become lunatics.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely, that's exactly where it comes. That's a scientific fact.
Yeah.
Just as well as the moons control the tides, and you have plants that grow by moonlight, not by sunlight. But who cares about the sunlight and moonlight? They control your wives, which is probably that's why I'm saying it's so important.
Without the sun, you don't.
But without
Right.
the sun, nothing will grow.
Yeah.
Correct. I was saying without the moon because the moon controls the women, so that's how I said the most effective in your life. Right. So you go ahead and you have the sun and the moon. They control what goes on in this world. So let me explain to you the nicest idea I heard about this. Okay? What happened was God creates the sun and God creates the moon. Now, where does the moonlight come from?
Reflected from the
The
sun.
reflection of the sun, right? So what does the moon say to God? The moon says to God, I want to have a direct relationship, right? I don't want to be just a reflection of the sun, right? I want to have my own light, right? I want to have my own relationship with you, God. And you know what God says to the moon?
Okay.
Okay, but what do you have to do?
You gotta do something.
You have to make yourself small. It means if you want to be a reflection of God, and if you want to reflect God, you have to make yourself humble. And the more humble you make yourself, the more godly you are. Right? And that's what the moon is saying to God. Right? I don't want to be just a reflection of the sun. I want to be straight from you, God. And God says, sure, no problem. Make yourself small.
Oh, how sweet.
Right? Then there's a famous story with there was a great sage known as the Rebbe. The Rebbe was, I think, in the 1800s. Okay, plus or minus 100 years, and give me enough leeway. And he was known to be very, very sharp. And what happened was he had a group of students. And he went and says to his group of students, he says, where can you find God? So they go up, down, right, left, and all around, here, there, and everywhere. Right? God could be found. He cuts up his note. He said, up, down, no, here. No, they couldn't get the answer. They finally said to the Rebbe, they said, Rebbe, where can you find God? And he says, it's very simple. Wherever you let him in. Right? Meaning what happens is, God is all over the place. Right? God fills the world, right? The whole world is filled with God's creations. What happens? We pump ourselves up, right? We make ourselves these big egos, and we push God out of our picture. Right? We push God out of the frame. Right? And so the Rebbe says, you want to know where you can find God? Wherever you go ahead and you let him in. That's where you can find God.
But the Rabbi, God created you with your egos.
Correct. And your job, God created you with your ego, and your job is to get rid of your ego. You know, by the way, you know what your ego is? You know another name for your ego is?
Mm-mm.
The evil inclination.
Oh.
You should know that. You should know that our egos means that our egos is what destroys us and what kills us. And our job is to take our egos our job is to take our ego and it was a phone. Our job is to take our ego and to control it, right? And to make sure that we control our ego, not our ego controls us, right? And that's what he's saying is that wherever we let God in, that's where God can be found. And it's wherever we don't chase Him away, right? And so that's the idea that the moon says to God, I want to be a straight reflection of you. I don't want to be reflected off the sun. And God says, sure, not a problem. Make yourself small. And that's really the story is an amazing story. I mean that what happens is that God goes ahead, and as we go ahead, right, we could either push God out, right, or we could make God God. Mm-hmm. And that's really our job, is to go ahead and to make sure that we don't let, right, we keep the focus on God, not the focus on me. Yeah.
But you can also be your ego can be godly, meaning, whatever you do, you humiliate yourself, is say, okay, I did it, I became this because of God, and that can be
no, that's very good. That means that you're saying that it's all God. It's not me, right? And that's exactly what's supposed to happen, right? That's right. That's taking the ego says it's all me. I'm the greatest, right? I did it all.
Yeah, without
right,
God.
right. It's not God, right? We said, the greatest, right? Actually, the humility, right, is really the key. Who is the greatest humble person that ever lived? Moses. Right? Right. The Torah says, right? Right? Reish Moshe ana ma'od mikol ha'adam. And the man Moses was the most humble of all people. Why? Because it was all God, no Moses. In fact, so much so, you want to hear some incredible idea? Mm-hmm. Moses, when he was a little baby, he burnt his throat, right? He burnt his mouth, right? He couldn't talk. Hearing Moses talk was a lesson in just sitting there, right? Then he's stuttering, right? Mm. You know why God had Moses burn his mouth?
To save his life.
To save his life, right? But God could have made him many ways to save his life, right? Why did Moses have to? Because it's very interesting. How do you speak? What happens is you breathe out, right? And as your breath comes out, your voice, your larynx, right? You have 5 pieces, by the way, in that control how you speak, right? Tongue, palate, right? By the way, the Hebrew letters, the 22 letters are divided up into these 5 letters, into these 5 areas, and all the letters that are pronounced using the same piece of your mouth actually have a connection. It's very, very, very fascinating, the Hebrew language. And so you go ahead and you have, so Moses had to burn his mouth. Why? Because it says God would speak from Moses' throat, right? But normally what we do is we form what comes out and we change what's speaking. But Moses was so humble that when you heard Moses talk, it was like you were hearing it straight from God, because there was no Moses. So Moses had to burn, right? He had to burn himself so that to show that he wouldn't affect any of the sound that Moshe would speak. And it said it would come out and you'd be hearing God talking from Moses' throat, because Moses made himself as nothing. Right? There was no Moses. And that's what it means, right? The man, right, he was most humble of all people to walk on the face of the earth. And that's why he was the greatest prophet.
So he was God's ventriloquist?
No, very good. Right. It comes somewhat along the idea is that we were hearing
God was his ventriloquist.
God was his ventriloquist, right? We heard God. We heard him talking, right? We heard him. We heard it was no Moses, and that's why Moses could be the conduit to bring us the Torah from Mount Sinai. Right, because Moses didn't get in the way, because everyone else, right, is putting up a transparency in front, right? And so what happens is you're going ahead and you're not hearing what's there. You're getting filtered through that person, and our job is to remove that filter and to make sure we hear God. Yeah.
A conversation that Moses was having with God at times, God having a conversation with himself.
No. That was Moses talking. Moses developed the idea of shuttle diplomacy. Right? Moses would go back and forth right between the Jewish people and God, going ahead and bringing back and forth, right? Bringing back and forth the talking of each one, right? Of what the Jewish people said, what God says to the Jewish people, right? Back and forth, right? The shuttle diplomacy, right? That all came back, and that was all from God. Yeah.
So low self-esteem is good.
No, low self-esteem is terrible. It will kill you. You actually can't live if you have low self-esteem, right? Now, because let me explain to you something. It's very important. I'm going to explain the difference between low self-esteem and humility. Humility is when somebody comes and says, you're brilliant, and you happen to have an IQ of 180. I'm not talking you 180. You have an IQ of, well, what's the highest IQ number? 200. You have an IQ of 200, and someone says you're brilliant.
I would say Baruch Hashem.
It's right to say thank you. I'm brilliant, right? But then you say, who gets credit for the brilliant IQ? And you take credit, or is it all God? So a humble person says, it's all God. Thank God. God gave me that blessing, and because I had that blessing, I have many more responsibilities than other people. Person with low self-esteem says, no, it's really not me. Here, don't make a mistake, right? Don't make a mistake between low self-esteem and being humble. Being humble is recognizing that all your talents and gifts come from God.
There you go.
Who made you so smart? Who made you so rich? Who made you so beautiful? Right? It's all God. Right. And so you say, okay, thank you. Now once I have that, what's my responsibility? Right? What does that make me responsible for? And that's a very big difference. It's a very big difference between low self-esteem and being humble. Being humble is recognizing your talents and understanding that once you have those talents, so then at that point in time, you have responsibilities with those talents.
So low self-esteem, you say, no, it's really, I don't have that. You deny that, your gifts.
That's right. That's a low self-esteem, right? And the humble person
is Baruch Hashem.
You thank God. God gave it to me, and therefore I have responsibility to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever it is. Yeah.
Most of the Torah commentary is Rashi and Rambam.
Nope.
Well, I don't understand him.
Yeah, hold on.
What
You
did
go
he
ahead.
say?
Okay. Now he's saying that most of the commentary is Rashi and the Rambam, and so I was telling my mom. So I tell him that this.
So why didn't Moshe do this job?
Okay,
why them? Why? What,
okay.
Are they better than Moshe?
No. So let me explain to you. Moses gave us the commentary to Moses was God's scribe, right? God dictated the Torah word by word. Moses wrote it down.
Before you continue, because Rashi is the one who's transferring what we see on the top to the bottom.
Right, but Rashi, and how does Rashi know it? Because he was taught by his rabbis. And who taught his rabbis?
Their rabbis.
And who taught their rabbis?
Their
rabbis. And who taught their rabbis?
Their rabbis.
Moses.
Oh.
Right, all the right, their rabbis goes back to Moses. And that's the oral law. Right, and so we have Rashi and Maimonides, Nachmanides, many great sages, then have taken this and sort of put it transferred it down into a commentary who made it that we could go ahead and we could learn it.
But what we're learning here is exactly the same thing as we're learning on the top.
Yeah.
Does it have a different meaning?
No, it's explaining to us what the meaning on the top is. It means the Torah says, for example, the example I like to use, the Torah says lo sirtzach. Anyone know what the word lo sirtzach means?
No.
You shall not kill. Right? Was it you shall not murder? Right? So the top says lo sirtzach. Right?
Well, that's part of one of the commandments.
That's right, sure. It's right. It's part of the 10 Commandments. Right? And what does it mean? It means you shall not murder. Right? That's the translation. Right? Now what is defined as murder? Right?
I can kill a fly. Is that a murder?
No, it's very good. So then it depends. No. The answer is you're killing one of God's creatures. Right? So if you're killing one of God's creatures, you got to be careful. Right? There got to be a reason for that. Right? And so therefore, so you go ahead but in the 10 Commandments it says lo sirtzach. It means you shall not murder. It's talking about killing another human being, right? Murdering another human being, not killing another human being. What defines that also? That's part of the oral law that God told Moses, and Moses came and explained it to us, and then transferred it down to us, and that was all transmitted orally, right, for the first roughly 1,500 years. At which point in time there was a great sage named Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, who sat down and he wrote wrote the beginnings of the oral law called the Mishnah. Okay, and he codified it into the Mishnah, and then a few hundred years later, they then expanded that and wrote that down even more under the leadership of Rav Amin Ravasi, and wrote it and expanded the Talmud even more.
So could it be that right after they left Egypt, Moshe started teaching
Absolutely, for sure.
and the teaching kept on continuing?
The continue, absolutely. Right, the teaching kept on continuing and teaching and teaching. Right, and right for 40 years in the desert. That's exactly what he did. That's exactly what took place. Right, and anything that he didn't know, right? If we would stump the rabbi, you know, imagine you have Moses and you stump Moses. You know what he would do? He'd pick up his red telephone because he had a direct line to God. He'd pick it up and say, "Okay, God, what does this mean?" And God would tell him what it means. Right, and that's exactly what took place in the 40 years in the desert. That's exactly what the Jews did.
So during Moshe's time, there was no error of mistake.
Correct. Very good. Excellent.
What did he say?
During Moses' time, there was no error. There was no mistakes. Because Moses could always turn to God and get the exact answer.
You get burned.
That's you're 100% right. That's exactly what happened. As long as Moses was alive, there was no... And in fact, by the way, even machlokas, right? Even disagreements that we have, right? Machlokas for the first probably 1,200 years, 1200, 1300 years, there was no machlokas.
What is machlokas?
Disagreement. Means we had the perfect clarity. And the first time that there was a disagreement, right, there was an earthquake. The world shook.
Wow.
Because that was the first time that there was all of a sudden now, it began to become that non-clarity. Right? And that fog sort of began to like move in. And they had that little like unclarity. Right? Because as long as Moses was alive, bang, they had the answer.
So Moshe could see evil inclination, see Satan and everything else?
Yeah, Moses. Yes, Moses was somebody who was so spiritually attuned. He the whole world. You know, I mean, again, not even so long ago, right? You know, in Europe there was a rabbi that he would look at your forehead and he could tell like what you did. You know, like he could look at you and he could say, "Oh, I see you sinned today. I see you went to McDonald's. Not that it was McDonald's, but I see you had that cheeseburger today." Right? So people were so funny. So people used to cross the street when he was walking down. they didn't want him. You know, they walk around like this. You know, like you know, it's so funny. You think you could cover up? It means he can see your forehead. He can't see through your hands, right? But yeah, sure.
Okay, but if you made the world so perfect, why Muslims, why Christian, why this, why that?
No. So people have free will. People have free will, and people could choose to do what they want.
And there is an evil inclination.
Right.
Let me ask you something. People do something even though they do. People smoke even though they know that's done.
Yeah.
So knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two separate points. People don't do the right thing a lot of times because they want the bad things. And then they justify. This is not really wrong, and what does wrong mean, and what does right mean? That's when they go after he actually.
So, I just wanted to say, so the 40 years in the desert wasn't a hardship, actually.
The 40 years in the desert, the Talmud says, the 40 years in the desert was probably the best 40 years of the existence of the world. Means that what happened was we were, if you just understand it for a second, we were traveling in the desert, we were traveling in the dome. Right, okay, right, traveling, right, we had the clouds of glory all around us, temperature controlled. We were eating God food, right, that manna came down every day. We were drinking water from a rock, right, so drinking, right, heavenly water.
Pure.
Right, pure. The water and food was so pure that it was totally absorbed 100% in our bodies. Right? We didn't have to go to the bathroom for 40 years.
You have to have sanitation.
Yeah. For 40 years. Not sanitation, it's to wash the hands. What?
Clothing didn't deteriorate.
Clothing didn't deteriorate.
I love that one.
Right, the clothing was went and right, the clouds would go ahead and would clean our clothing every night.
And when you walked, you didn't get tired.
And your clothing would grow with you. Right, if you were 20 years old when you left, by the time you got right at the end of the desert, 60 years, your clothing grew with you. That it was, and why was that? Actually, you know what it's called? You know what the generation of the desert is called?
No.
It's called the Dor Dea.
Dor Dea?
Dor Dea. The generation of knowledge.
Doris
Because,
knowledge.
no, Doris generation,
generation.
they are das. Right, comes the word das,
Das.
knowledge. Right, is that we got to a place of where, right, the generation, we call the generation of knowledge. Because for 40 years, all the entire Jewish people just sat and studied Torah.
So they were separated from outside world.
Yeah.
What does that mean separated from?
Meaning we had the clouds of glory around.
No involvement with nature.
Yeah, what are they going to do? Live in the desert?
Plant or have an apple or something.
No, right. Now they could. Now the good news is they can still make barbecues. Right, because remember they had their animals with them that they took out of Egypt.
So in which part did they take the Torah with them and they carried it for 40 years?
In the desert.
The whole thing, the whole...
Yeah, now remember, again, that was through the tabernacle. But remember, 19 years, for one 19-year period, and one for one 18-year period, the Jewish people encamped in two places. So there was a total of 42 places that the Jewish people encamped, but most of the traveling was done in year one and in year 40. Right? But for a total, for an 18-year period and 19-year period, that the Jewish people encamped in one place.
And they studied 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Well, not 24/7, right? They still needed to sleep, right? Because sleep is very important. Because sleep teaches us that we're not God, right? Because God doesn't need to sleep, right?
So
What happens?
they
We begin to
they
think.
were human like me and you.
Yeah. Yeah. As we would say, halavai, we would be as holy as they were. Yeah, right. If it only would be that we would be as holy as they were, but that's where they were human. They were really human beings they were spiritual beings in human forms. It was just a total different existence than we can ever imagine. I mean, imagine somebody who was born in the desert, and for 40 years, what did he think food came from? From the sky.
Yeah.
right. They thought food came from the sky, right? Because that's all they knew.
It was like
So
Abraham
what did
came
they,
out of the- out
what
of
did
the
they
cave.
do,
Right. What?
what did they do to make, that God didn't make a substitute after Moses passed away, to keep on with that life?
So God said you have to go into the land of Israel, and your job is to interact with the world, and to elevate the world, to take the physical world and to infuse it with spirituality. And that's our job, right? Our job is to take the world and to infuse it with spirituality, right? We take a glass of water, and what do? We make a bracha on it, right? We make a blessing on it. We now have elevated something physical, and we've turned it into a spiritual item. And that's really our job, right? And our job is to take the physical world and to make it holy, right? To make it spiritual. Yeah.
So it said that when the baby is in the womb of the mother,
Mm-hmm.
that it studies Torah all
Right.
the time. So
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a sense, the desert was the womb for the Jewish people.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And by the way, it had to be. You know why? Because we had just spent 210 years in Egypt. Right? And so what happened was we spent 210 years in Egypt, and what happened was we had no Jewish knowledge. Right? And all of a sudden now we need to sort of get a catch up to learn the Torah. We come to the desert, right? 50 days in the desert, we get the Torah. And now we have to learn how to live like Jews. But we've been slaves for 210 years. So what happens is, so then at that point in time, God has to give us a retreat, right? He has to take us, not a weekend retreat, not a week-long retreat, a 40-year retreat, to go ahead to teach us and educate us, to get us to the level where we could go ahead and we could become, right? We could go ahead and we could act. We know how to act as godly people, right? As God-fearing Jews, right? And so that's what we need to be in the desert. So God said, I'll tell you what, I'll make it easy for you. I won't make you work. I'll let you sit and study. I'll give you food. I'll give you water, right? Whatever you, right? Your clothing. You have no worldly concerns. Just go and study Torah. And that way then the Jewish people were able to sort of ramp up and get to the place where we could then finally go ahead and we could function
But
as
that was
Jews.
the beginning of commandments.
Yeah.
After they left, that's the series of commandments took place.
Right.
In order for us to behave like a Jew.
Correct. That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
What is that different, the Mishnah and the Gemara?
No, so the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Mishnah is just the footnotes to the Talmud. Means the Talmud is a further elucidation on the Mishnah. Right? The Mishnah is sort of bullet points, and then the Gemara, the Talmud, is now a further explanation of each of these bullet points, more information.
No, okay.
Okay.
Gemara and Talmud are synonymous.
Generally. Again, they could, words be used many different ways, but generally, yes.
They weren't supposed to write it down at all.
Right.
They weren't allowed to write it down. But then came a choice. The Jews were being pushed around.
Right.
They began forgetting. And now they said, well, what are we going to do? Either we're going to let the
We're gonna
Torah be
lose it.
totally forgotten,
Right.
or we're going to do it.
well-
Raguda Nossi found a pasuk, and they wrote it down in the shortest form possible.
And
Then,
this-
just let me finish, and then they can,
Yeah.
and then 200 years later, over those 200 years, the Jews started disagreeing in this many disagreements. They said, oh, we can't just remain with the bullet point page, we'll lose it all. And now we wrote it down, and then anything could be written down. And that's the end of the Talmud that Rabbi Epstein referred to. But Ravasi and Rabbeinu Ravasi, these two great rabbis, combined to write down the Talmud, and after that, okay, now you can write anything down.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have the sun, we have the moon, we have the stars.
Right.
Where did the energy come from for it to be on the sky? It doesn't move a bit, and everything works together like a time clock.
Right. So when
Where did the energy come from?
God created it and put it into motion, right, and put everything into orbit.
At least we now have an explanation where that energy came from. No, seriously, where does the energy come from?
Right.
Is it finite? Is it infinite? What is it? Where does it come from?
Exactly, what is it? What
So
is
that's
it?
God. God can change the rules, you know.
You
He
know-
makes the rules, he plays with it.
You know what I always think of? Ever see the Harlem Globetrotters?
Yeah.
Right? You ever see when they take the ball and they take it and put it on the finger and spin
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
That's always what I think of. You know, like the world is spinning. You know, like God's making sure that the world keeps on spinning. Yeah.
So, sorry, forgot my question.
Alrighty. Good. We'll come back to you.
Can I go-
Okay. So what happens?
I got one.
Okay,
In
let's-
terms
okay.
of the moon, you were giving an explanation, a period of women or referring to the moon, right?
Yeah.
There was in French, you know, people say like if a woman in the period, you would say, you ask a question, or you go and you say, I'm not feeling good, so what's wrong? You would say, okay, je vois la lune. La lune means the moon. So they would say, that's expression.
Not very
from
interesting.
origin. Yeah, it's
But that's exactly what it is, right? That's exactly, and that's why, by the way, till probably 50 years ago, a woman would cycle like to the minute. Like if when it was the 27th day on the lunar month, the 12th hour, you know, every lunar month on the 27th day at the 12th hour, she would cycle.
That's the old days.
That's in the old days. Nowadays, until 50 years ago, that was. If you take a look in Jewish law, right? Jewish responses are filled with issues dealing with that. Then in the last 50 years, in the question, because maybe 100 years, you see the questions all of a sudden changed, either because of the stress in our lives today, or because of that women are much more active than so now that has come off that. But otherwise, that's really how it's in sync.
So, Rabbi, do they have that expression in Hebrew or in English, like I'm seeing the moon, meaning that you...
I don't think I'd never heard it, but I know.
But in French, it's popular.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So Einstein said that God does not play dice with the universe.
Right.
Meaning he could have done it any way he wanted to do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. But he used.
He meant that it's not random.
It's not random, right?
It's not
Right.
random.
There was a theory by what's his name? Famous theory, which they really disagree with Einstein today, but that's neither here nor there. That's based on probabilities, and high probabilities will do it. But he said, no, God doesn't play dice. It doesn't work on probability. It works on hard rules. That's what he felt.
Yeah.
It's not really been so decided.
Okay, good. So verse number 1 to verse number 16. So it says, and God made the two great luminaries, right? And that's what he did. He made two great luminaries. Nothing else. All of a sudden now we're hearing there's a greater luminary to dominate the day and the lesser luminary to dominate the night and the stars, right? And so therefore, right, and then God put them in. The stars was to help us because when he took away, they made the moon smaller, right? So then therefore we needed more light at night. So God went to put the stars in there to be able for us to go ahead and to us to be able to see at night. Okay, and right in the verse number 17, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to dominate by day and by night, and to separate between the light and the darkness. And God said that was good. There was evening, there was morning, a fourth day. And this wraps up day number 4. And this is when God goes ahead and God finishes the creation in day number 4. Day number 5, chapter 1, verse number 20. Isaac, you want to read?
God says, "Let there be water teem with living creatures, and fowl with flies about over the earth across the expanse of the heavens. And God created the great sea, giant, and everything beginning that creeps, with which the water teemed after their kind. And all that winged fowl from multiple and fell.
And all winged fowl of every kind. You skipped line. Yeah, and God saw there was.
Sorry. And I'm filled with water. Is that where I'm at?
No, one line up. And God saw that it was good.
And God saw it was good, and God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the water with the seed. But the fowl shall increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day.
Okay, so now we come to day number 5. And what was created in day number 5?
Flies,
Living creatures.
Living creatures.
Okay, living creatures. Now we finally get into the realm of living creatures, right?
Flies.
Right? And so what do we get to? We get to fish and birds. Okay? Right?
Fish and what?
Birds.
Oh, birds.
Okay, and by the way, what was created first, fish or the birds?
It says fish.
It says fish. So what was created first? Fish.
Fish.
Very interesting, right? And then what comes, actually, it's very fascinating because if you actually read the Torah, right? In day number 5, first the fish were created, then the birds, and then what was created in day number 6? The animals, and then humans. Right? So it's quite fascinating, right? When you actually stop and think about it, right? The order of creation, right? It goes fish, bird, animals, humans. Right? Just very interesting.
Science.
Right, our friend Darwin,
Yeah.
right? Our friend Darwin, right, thought that he came up with this, right? That the order of how things were created, that it was fish, birds, animals, and humans. All you had to do was read the Torah.
He did.
Right?
That's all
Is
there.
that anything to do with why we eat fish before we eat meat?
Very interesting. I don't know. I never heard that.
No,
I never heard
it's
that.
not.
Not related.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop.
So let
Yeah,
me-
but who eats fish anyway?
I know what you mean.
Well, we have
Eating
gefilte fish.
Yeah, gefilte fish. Wait a minute. We need gefilte fish for
Fish
Shabbos.
eating fowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where does this concept of clean and unclean animals?
And we're gonna get to that. That's from the Torah.
What did they do to become clean or unclean?
Okay, good. We'll get to all that. We'll get to all that. You're ahead of the game right now on the fish and birds. Okay, right? It's actually interesting. I think just interesting on fish, right? What makes the fish kosher?
Scales and fins.
Scales and fins, right? What is unique about fish that have scales and fins? I don't know what's unique about them.
There are no fish with scales and fins that are not kosher.
No. I mean, there are no fish that have scales that don't have fins.
Right.
But what is unique about a fish that has skins and fins and scales?
What do you mean? What's unique?
What's unique about them?
Yeah, blood and all.
What's unique about them is that they can swim upstream.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. So you know what God says? You know you Jews, you
can
got to
swim
eat fish that have fins and scales, because as a Jew,
You're gonna
you got to
always
make
have to
sure
go
that you can
upstream.
swim upstream, right? That you can go against the tide, right? Our job is not to go ahead and to kind of look at the world, what's the latest fad, right? Latest and greatest fad, and to do it. Our job is to swim against the tide, and to make sure that we don't get sucked into, right? That we don't get sucked into, right? All the world that is out there.
Can you explain more? Like, what it really means, swim against
Swim against tide, meaning the whole world is saying, oh, you gotta go, do this, or you gotta go do that, right? And we have to be able to stop and to say, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or is that using time wisely? Is that not using time wisely? Right? And then to go ahead and to say, okay, I'm not going to do it just because the world is doing it. Right? Just because the world is doing it is not a good enough answer.
You go against peer pressure.
You go against peer pressure, right? Right? Your friends might sit around. I'll give you an example. You're sitting with a bunch of your friends. And so what do people, when they sit around, what do they do? They might be talking Lashon Hara. Right? They might start talking about people. Right? It might, right? And right? And so you as a fish with fins and scales swimming against the tide, you know what you got to do?
Leave.
You leave, right? Swim against, right? Or stop, right? Or say, we shouldn't really be talking about people. That's not the right thing to do, right? Right? So right. So bucking the tide means going ahead and saying what is the right thing, and going ahead and doing what is right. Not just what is popular, just what the world is doing. And that's what it means swimming against the tide. So, okay? So we got day number 5. We got the fish and we got the birds. Okay? That was created on day number 5. Okay. Then we go to day number 6. Day number 6. Sherry, you want to read?
Sure. God said,
okay, what I'd like to do is I'm going to read through all day number 6, and then we're going to go back to the beginning of day number 6. Go ahead.
God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures, each according to its kind, animal and creeping being, and beast of the land, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, and the animal according to its kind, and every creeping being of the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. You want me more?
Yeah, you just read through them, we're going to come back.
Oh, next thing?
Yeah, next page, verse 26.
Okay. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. They shall rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over the animal, the whole earth, and every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created man in his image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, the bird of the sky, and every living thing that moves on earth. God said, behold, I have given to you all herbage yielding seed that is on the surface of the entire earth, and every tree that has seed yielding fruit, it shall be yours for food. And to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth, within which there is a living soul, every green herb is for food. And it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day.
Okay, right, so we go through, right, okay, so what happens, what gets created on day number 6?
All the creatures.
All the creatures, right, okay? All the creatures get created, right, on day number 6. Okay, right, again, all the land animals as well as human beings. Okay, so now let's go back, and now let's reread, let's go take it verse by verse, right, and let's kind of take a look and see what's going on over here. Okay, chapter 1, verse number 24, right, page 7 in your Art Scroll Stone, right, Chumashim. Okay, so let's read it again. Verse 24. Go ahead, Cher.
Bring forth.
God said.
Oh, God said?
Don't forget God.
I don't know that. Is that God in Hebrew?
No. We're verse 24.
Oh.
No, go back to page 7.
Where you started.
No,
Yeah.
I'm on 7. But we're at the top.
The top, yeah.
Oh,
Well, you just read.
read it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there, go ahead. No, don't.
Well, okay. God said. Yeah, okay, I got it. God said, I'm a little slow. God said, let the waters.
Let the earth.
Let the earth.
Okay.
24.
Oh, 24. Okay. All right. Okay. I got it this time. Okay. God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures, each according to its kind, animal and creeping being, and beast of the land, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, and the animal according to its kind, and every creeping being of the ground according to its kind. And God saw it was good.
So what happens here? What are we told over here? What does God create?
Genetics.
Actually,
Animal and creeping beasts.
Right, are being created. Right? God tells the earth to bring forth all the different animals.
that he had already created.
That he. What do you mean? Already
Well,
created?
it doesn't say he created the animals. It says the earth brought forth the animals, which he had essentially given the earth the option to do before.
I know. So what happened was, so we hear God is saying, remember, the act of creation, which means something out of nothing, was only done on the first day. Right? Only when God started creating the world did he create something out of nothing. Right? He created the entire matter, right, from which the world comes from. Right? And he took that matter, and now he's shaping it all into these different things. He's transforming that matter now into animals. So now he's going ahead, he's creating the animals. Again, after he's created the birds, and after he created the fish, he's created the birds, and now God is going ahead and he's creating the animals. Right? So now we have, right, fish, birds, animals. Okay? Being all created here. Okay. Right? Okay, and every creeping of the ground. And what does it mean according to its kind?
The same kind of animal.
The same kind of animals, the same kind of
That-
creeping beings. Is that what that
one
means?
animal can beget the same type of animal.
Okay, good. That the animals have to stick to its own kind.
Species.
Very important, right? Right. The dog should stick with the dog, and the cat with the cat. Right. Right. Every animal with its own kind. Right. Okay. Don't go finding other species. Right. Okay. Right. To its own kind. Every animal has to retain to its own species.
I'm gonna make your job a little bit maybe easier or harder. So can I explain the whole situation? So he created the animal kingdom, basically.
Yeah.
So we have the human kingdom, we have the animal kingdom.
Right.
Completely separate from each other.
Correct.
How are we supposed to rule over them? How am I supposed to rule over a lion?
Oh, so the answer is like this. When God says to go ahead and that we're supposed to rule over the earth, right? Okay, what that means is we are supposed to use it in a way to go ahead and to use it to its best ability from which it was created for. Okay, that's what it means. It means we have a responsibility to the world, right? Meaning it's actually interesting, the responsibility not to make things extinct, right? We have a responsibility to go ahead and to create things in the world and to go ahead and to use all the resources in the world in its proper way.
Highest utility.
Highest, right?
Husband the animals, make sure that they're all taken care of.
Right.
No, let me add one more.
Okay, one second. Father wants to say something.
You want to say how does it control it? A human being has a brain that's much more
I
intelligent.
cannot control a lion.
No?
Yes, you
So
can.
you put them in.
When you go to your
Sure can. You stay away from them. Please don't
Can you
come
put
near
them
them.
in big cages? You can build traps. Can a lion build a trap? You'll build a hole. You'll tell the lion, go get me. Goes down in the hole. So what you do, you
But I
have something.
cannot eat a lion.
First of all, you can eat a lion, but most people don't eat lions. Most people don't eat most of the wild animals because the meat gets too tough. It's really something to go ahead and to get to a place. Right? It's no accident that the animals that we can eat, the kosher animals, are the ones that have the best tasting meat.
Okay, so let me just add this.
Yeah, a lion doesn't have a split
Let me
nose.
just add this to the question. It says,
Yeah.
let the earth bring forth living creatures.
Right.
So earth brought them out.
Yes. It's very fascinating because when it says to the creation of man, it doesn't say let the earth bring forth.
No.
It's very interesting. Your point is 100% well taken, right? It says here when it comes to the animals, to go. You take in here it says let the earth bring forth by animals, but not by humans.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
They're supposed to multiply,
Mhm.
but they also need to eat and hunt each other.
Correct. No. So hold on. That's not correct. I apologize. I take that back. All animals are vegetarians until
the
after the flood.
Oh, I see.
Okay, right? Okay, the carnivorous animals, even in the Garden of Eden, were all, not only were they vegetarian.
They were tame.
No, it doesn't say tame. But it says that they could only eat all animals. It's very what did human beings get for their diet?
What do you mean?
What was on our menu?
Vegetables.
Stuff from the trees.
Okay, that's fruit. Was it vegetable or fruits?
No, vegetables grow on trees.
No, vegetables grow from the ground.
Okay.
Okay.
Stuff from the ground and stuff from the trees.
And what can animals eat?
Same thing.
No.
Stuff from the ground.
No.
Very good.
Stuff from the ground.
Animals can only eat vegetables.
They can't eat fruit.
Human beings were given vegetables and fruits.
Okay.
Okay, right? Okay, our diet was vegetable and fruit, and animals were only given vegetables. That's all they can eat. Now, human beings also, if we found roadkill, we could eat the roadkill. Okay, right? But we were not allowed to kill an animal in order to eat it. That was
we could kill it for fur.
if not again, right? We're going to need that, right? After we sin and get thrown out.
Yeah.
Right, then we can kill it for fur. Now then we can kill it for clothing.
They get thrown
So,
out.
so the concept of the Indian people saying that because they're only vegetarians, they don't eat animals because they say the spirit of the animal is going to hunt them, and our teeth is not designed to eat meat. Our teeth is designed to eat vegetables.
My teeth are designed to eat meat.
No, but we are not. We don't have long teeth.
Yeah, but we have the front teeth.
Yeah, the front
Right,
teeth
right,
for-
so-
and
right.
not just for chewing, they're for
Right.
ripping apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even us, we were not allowed to kill animals for eating until after the flood. Right, we couldn't do that.
Right.
Now, someone said like just interesting, just to its own kind, like a donkey, right? A donkey, which is a cross between a horse and a mule, right? Right. So donkeys, by the way, you can't breed a donkey, right? You know that.
Sterile.
They're sterile, right? Because they're it's the end of the line,
Yeah, that's
right? But so for a Jew to cross a horse and a mule, they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Right, that's called kalayim. Right, that's called mixing. Right, that's creating a mixture.
Species.
Right, mixing two species. Right, yeah.
So you said we could eat a lion, but the lion doesn't have a split hoof.
Yeah,
It
right.
doesn't chew its cud.
Correct. It's not kosher.
It's not kosher.
Right. But he's saying, but mankind.
I was going to business of making lion meat.
Making lime. It's not.
So we only became hunters after the flood.
Very interesting. We only became sure.
Yeah.
So we became so hungry that we had.
No. Again, hunters for meat.
For me too.
But we could be hunters for fur. What's the proof?
What's the proof?
How do we know you can become that we're hunters for clothing?
It's got to be somewhere in this.
Absolutely, but it's later on. You didn't have it come to it yet.
Oh, it's
Okay.
It's in I'm going to exempt you. It's in chapter 4. My Cain gets killed by Tuval Cain. Okay, Tuval Cain was out hunting. Right, he was out hunting. Right, and then he by accident shot his great grandfather.
How do you know he was doing the right thing?
Okay, because I've never seen anywhere that he was doing the wrong thing.
No, I tell you why.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Because there's a question about whether they could eat roadkill or not.
Right.
Let's presume that you can.
Right, I'm following. We follow Rashi.
I know. But the point is that you're not. Why is it, according to many commentaries at least, after the flood that we could listen to Ramban and others, that we are allowed to kill them to eat them because we saved them.
Right.
So then why can we kill them for the fur? What's the difference?
So that okay. It's long as this. So to me, that was when we could wholesale go about and even eat them.
I haven't seen where according to those opinions.
God gave us leather clothing, right? When we threw us out of the garden.
Yeah, maybe he had roadkill, and God can do what He wants.
Right. I stand by what I say.
Okay.
That I think, okay, we can discuss this later.
I'm not saying.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you what my proof. Right, correct. Right, you could argue with my proof.
So let me make this more complicated. After the flood,
Yeah.
More complicated.
Yeah.
there is no vegetation, nothing. So they have to go and in order to survive to hunt animals. Is that how bad situation become? Or
No,
have
because
nothing to
But
eat?
they took food along in the ark,
I see.
right, until they were able to plant and to
So where
replenish
did the
it.
hunting start? Where is
No. So at that point in time, God told man that now, right, that now we'll see. We'll come to it in Parshas Noach.
Yeah, but
Right, God tells Noach that now you can start eating animals.
I didn't understand
but the
monogamous
animals
point.
eating animals.
Okay, don't worry about it. It was a fine point. This point that I said that you could hunt for fur, but not for meat, right? So he's not sure that he agrees with me. I told him one proof. He then said to me, Bentzi, it's not an absolute proof, and I agreed with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an absolute proof. I did have a second. I did have another because another additional, right? Because Cain and Abel brought an offering, right? And so Abel brought an animal for an offering. So you see that it wasn't an ironclad rule that you couldn't kill an animal because that's for an offering. You could. And so therefore you see that, and then I pointed out another place where you saw that there was a hunting accident, even before the flood. Tubal Cain. So he said maybe Tubal Cain was sinning by hunting, and so I said to him, I said it's possible. I said I think from the read of the Torah, it seems that it wasn't doing anything wrong by hunting, right? But it was just that, and therefore, and that was my proof. My father said you could disagree with it. It's not an ironclad proof. And I agreed with him. I said it's not an ironclad proof. I said I'm it's a 90 to me. It's a 95% proof. But it's not it's not absolute.
But Tubal
and
Cain was hunting for fur.
Well, he was hunting. He couldn't be hunting for food? My argument, he couldn't be hunting for food.
Right.
So therefore, he must have been hunting for fur.
I mean, you can worship idols, but God forbid he should hunt.
We have people like that today. right. Yeah.
Rabbi, the Torah also say at the beginning, God created the earth and the animal and give a dominion to man over the
Correct.
animals.
Right.
Right. So meaning that, what is that part? What is that tells us?
No, the dominion is that our job is to use them in the ways that we need to use them.
Highest utility.
And the highest utility. I'll give you an example. And to me, this is one of the most wondrous world out there. The wondrous world that we live in, right? You always saw a pig, right? And I used to think, you know what the use of a pig is? Growing up, a pig was a very important animal. You know why? How could you have a pig skin if you don't have a pig? Right? How could you have a football if you don't have a pig? Right? So that was the use of the pig, right? And then what happened was, right, we kind of, probably 30 years ago, or maybe even 40 years ago, right, they began to realize that some human beings might need valve replacements in their hearts. And where do they get the valve replacements from?
The pig.
From the pig. The pig provides a very important service now.
Right.
And you got to make sure the pigs are around because, right, it's a walking pharmacy.
Also insulin.
Insulin, right? Exactly. Insulin comes from a pig,
Yeah.
right? The person, right, God forbid, who has diabetes, right, needs insulin. He gets his insulin from a pig, right? So it's amazing when you take a look and you see what God has put in the world, right? All these different animals, right? That He's put them in there is that you're able to go ahead and you're able to use them. Right, to go ahead and to use them in a way to serve God, right? It's actually something that's funny. I had a student that said to me, Rabbi, he says, I'm about to have a jaw transplant.
Oh my God.
Right, he says, and they want to use a pig jaw, right, in my jaw, in my jawbone, right? He says, am I allowed to use it? So I said, just make sure you don't swallow it.
So it's not kosher.
Right. As long as you don't eat it, you're okay. No, but that's what it is, right? And what happens is you take a look, you look around, and not only that, it's so much greater than that. Like they do all these transplants, right? What's the hardest part of the transplant?
Transporting
the item, right, from one place to another place, right? That's the hardest part, right? Do you know transporting, right? So God makes it that now you have a pig. He built a whole animal around the insulin, pig, around the the football, around the artery that keeps it fresh until you need it.
Right.
Right.
Skin is also used for
protecting
grafts.
protecting the grafts. Right, the skin.
What?
It's for
Skin grafts.
skin grafts.
Oh.
Right, it's just it's fascinating. I mean, just fascinating what God has created, how He's created. So you say dominion. That's what it means. Dominion. It means rule over it.
Can I go
To
to number
use it in a good way.
Yeah.
Can I go to number 26 because I have more questions?
Okay. No. Okay. Good. Okay. 1 second. Now. Okay. So God creates all the animals. Right. He creates the animals. Right, to its own kind. That every animal has to stick to its own kind. Right, very important. Right, the pig has to stick with the pig, and the lion with the lion, and the tiger with the tiger, and the human with the human. Right, and as I pointed out, right, Adam with Eve, and not Adam and Steve. Right, is that it goes out, and God goes out, and God creates. Right, every being, right, to its own kind in its proper usage.
Where does it say that about man?
Okay, we're gonna come to man. Okay, we're gonna come to man.
Sorry.
Right. Okay. Right. That you have to wait. You see what will be interesting is we're now reading chapter 1. In chapter 2, the Torah goes and gives us more information about the creation process of what actually took place. Okay. Right. So chapter 2 is not arguing with chapter 1. Chapter 2 is clarifying or giving us more information what happened in chapter 1. I have to have read chapter 2 so I can tell you. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit ahead. Okay. Right. Okay. So now let's go back. So now we're chapter 1, verse number 26. One of the most incredible verses in the Torah. Okay. Verse number 26. Peter, you want to read it?
Sure.
Top of page 9.
And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. They shall rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over the animal, the whole earth, and every creeping thing that creeps upon earth."
Okay. Okay, verse number 27.
So God created man in His image. In the image of God He created him. Male and female He created them.
Okay, whoa. Okay, so verse 26 and verse 27, we could spend the next 5 years discussing. Okay, what exactly is being meant of it? Let's just take it slowly, okay? And God said, "Let us make man."
Time out.
Yes.
Who's us?
Question number 1. Who is the us? Who's God talking to? Who's involved in the creation? That's number 1. Number 2, after in our image. Can I ask you a question? What does God look like?
We don't know.
Nothing.
Well, one thing we do know, nothing physical.
It's invisible.
Why can't God be anything physical?
Because they have the limitation on.
Very good, because once you go ahead and once you turn God into any physical form, right? Once you turn God into a physical form, you are limiting God. So by definition, God is limitless, means God cannot be physical. God cannot turn Himself into a human being. Right? That's one of the definitions of God. So what is in God's image? Does that mean? Do we have the God nose? And again, you you look so Jewish, you got the Jewish nose, right? Oh, what are you talking about? Right? Jewish nose, right? God doesn't have a nose. And I'll prove it to you even further. Because every physical thing that you have, an animal has too. Mm-hmm. And yet when it comes to animals, God doesn't say, "Let us make man in our image. Let us make the animals in our image." Right? So you see, it can't be anything physical.
Spiritual.
Okay? So what does it mean, "Let us make man in our image"? What image is He talking about?
Well,
It can't be physical.
Who is He talking to?
Okay, we're going to get to it. I'm just going through the questions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you stop and think, there's some attributes of God like morality. That would be
Okay, fine. So we're gonna have to figure out what that is. Okay, let's go. Right, in our image, after our likeness, they shall rule over the fish of the sea, right, the birds of the sky, and over the animals of the whole earth, and every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. And man is charged, right, to rule over it and to use what is in this world, right, to use it in its proper place and proper way, right. Now. Right, again, and just by the way, it's to me it's so fascinating, as we move on, just the different ways in which it's happening. To me, it's just mind blowing, right? You take a look, and you saw the wild Colorado River, right? I think longest river in the U.S. by the way. I mean, maybe I think even longer than the Mississippi, right? And you take a look at it, and it's this raging Colorado River. And you say, man, right, wild river, what can you do with it? And then we finally figured out we could dam it up, and we can build, right? We could create the Hoover Dam, right? And we create enough electricity coming out of that river, right, to go ahead and to, right, give electricity to millions and millions of people, right, in a clean and efficient way, right? You take a look, just look at the world. You take a look, you look at dirt, right? You say, what is dirt, right? What can you do with dirt? And you heat it up, you turn it into glass, and then you create glasses, right? And then you go ahead and then you could make great dirt. One of my favorite things is driving on the road and driving on concrete. What's concrete? Sand, the dirt, and right, and rocks, all rolled in together, right? And you go ahead and you pour a little water on it, you kind of mix it together, and what do you get? Concrete, right? Again, and who put all that in to make that concrete? God, right? You just go ahead, you take a look at this, and the whole thing becomes just an incredible, right? Each of these things that are going ahead just becomes just this incredible, right? What God has put into this world, right? And we're commanded, right, to go ahead and we're commanded to go ahead and to take this world and and rule over it, right? To go ahead and to create this most incredible, just incredible world. And we're told to, right? So then that's what we're told to do. Okay, and then it said, then God created man. So God created man in His image. Okay, so let's go back first. Let us make man in our image. So the Christian would say, let us make man in our image. The Christians would tell you, who is the us? Jesus. Yeah. Right, Jesus, right? Except there's one problem.
He wasn't around.
No. But you say, how do you know? They say, well, because he was around, so therefore must have been talking to Jesus. So the answer is, you can't, right? You can say whatever you want, but you have to be able to prove what it is, right? Like you can't just, you could just, right, just arbitrarily just go ahead and pull out what something means. Just like we talked about the tree of life. We'll talk about the tree of life another. Okay, coming up. Okay, right? So meaning, so who do we say let us, right? Let us make man in our image, right? Who is God talking to?
Angels.
The angels. So the question is, why is God talking to the angels? It means till now He's done the whole creation without any angels. All of a sudden now God's saying, okay, we need to get the angels involved. Like why all of a sudden now are angels coming back into the picture, right? What do we need angels for?
Because they control the world.
They control the world?
They put the game in play.
What does that mean?
We have a football game, we have a ball, we have 11 players, we have a stadium,
right.
There's people around the stadium, but the game needs to start working in order for people to watch the game and
you need to sell the concessions.
Yeah.
You always on Friday night on Shabbos you sing about angels.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we have angels that escort us and that are there to watch over us, right? But it says, so why is God talking to the angels over here when it comes to the creation?
How come we're not connected to God directly? Why did the angels?
Oh, no, good. No. It's a great question.
Good enough?
No. The answer is very simple. You know what happens if we be connected straight to God without the angels? We die. Can you imagine? Let me ask you a question. When you plug your phone into the outlet, what happens? It connects, right? It charges up. Excellent. Do you know what voltage it is?
240.
No, it's 110. Right? Now let me ask you a question. Do you know, if you take a look at the outside your house with your telephone lines, do you know those top lines, right? Those top lines, do you know electricity is running at? 660 volts. Now 660 volts are not bad, because if you touch them, it'll blow your arm off. Okay, now if you really want to get really fun, go take a look at those big, big transmission lines, the ones that have those the arms like this out in it. You know what those? You know how many volts those carry?
750 kilovolts.
Right, 12,000. And he keeps them doubling. So let me ask you a question. Why are we bothering with 110 volts? Why don't you just take your phone, toss your wire onto the 660 volts, and plug it in?
And I won't have to wait.
And you won't have to worry. You don't have to wait. Right? You won't have to wait. You won't have a phone either, right? What would happen? You'd fry, right? You want to connect to God directly? Good luck.
You're fried.
I'll see you on the other side.
So this is a spiritual. This is
Correct.
So
How
it's-
could your spirit get burned? I mean,
And the answer is like this. The answer is that as long as our spirit is in our body, okay, it becomes, there are certain rules. It becomes down to a certain level, and therefore, right? We want to say, God, show us, right? Moses says to God, right? Show me your essence. And you know what God says to Moses?
You can't live and see.
No, he says, I'll show you my essence, except you're going to die. Why? Because even Moses, who was the most humble of all people, right? If you would see, and he could talk God face to face, whatever that means, but the clarity, even he would die. And by the way, and it happened. Right? One time God went and spoke directly to the Jewish people. What happened?
They died.
We all died. When did that take place?
Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai. It's exactly what took place on Mount Sinai.
so when we pray to angels. We pray
No, you're not allowed to play the angels. God forbid. Right?
That's like idol worship.
Right. We talk directly to God.
Okay, but the angels are in the middle.
No. We talk directly to God
When we pray.
when we pray. Sure. I mean,
They're like the angels are like workers. They get the instructions.
right. They're
They're like bees.
They're worker bees. Right. They're just punching the time clock. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going.
What about the song Shalom Aleichem?
Right. No. So we said it.
No, I
Yeah. I said yeah. So right. So okay. Fine. So why is God talking to the angels when it comes to the creation of man?
What did he say?
Right. They did
He
protect.
said what I said was
Right.
No, he said about Shalom
Oh yeah.
Aleichem.
So okay. Yeah.
So, I think you also wanted the angels, who would be, part of the world,
Why?
buy into the creation of man.
Ah, very good. So one idea is as follows. God did not want there to be jealousy in the creation of the world. And angels would be jealous of mankind. So therefore God says, let's co-opt the angels into the creation of man, so therefore they won't be jealous upon man. And by the way, when man was created, you should know, it's amazing, when man was created, you know what the angels did?
Cry?
They began to worship man, because he looked to be as holy as God.
Really?
Yeah. So you know what happened? God made man sleep, so we would recognize that he's not God. And the angels tell the difference between man
That's
and
why
God.
we sleep.
That's why we sleep. Yeah. Sleep is to remind us, right? That's actually why, right? We remember we always have a reminder that we're not God.
Right.
So every day we need to sleep, right? And every week we have Shabbat, right? That goes in and reminds us again that we're not God,
Because we got to rest.
right? Because we have to rest, right? So it's just fascinating how we have that. And every year we have a Yom Kippur. We have an extra day of rest. And every 7 years we have a Shemitah. And every 7 Shemitahs we have a Jubilee. Right? What happens? We keep on having these things built in where you're going ahead and you're just having reminders that we're not God. Right? So God goes and God speaks to the angels. Why does He speak to the angels? He speaks to the angels specifically,
So they'll buy in.
so that they should have the buy-in that they are part of the process of creating man and shouldn't be jealous of man. That's one reason given.
So they were given commandments.
No. God said to the angels, "Hey, let's go create man."
But that's commandment.
Okay, right. No, but just in case you might think that happened, what happens? Look in verse number 27. So who creates man?
God.
So God creates man in His image. It doesn't say they created.
No.
It says God created. Right? It tells again that God created.
I want to okay. I'm thinking about God saying to the angel. It means that the angel they were like God employees, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then say it's like you are a senior rabbi, right?
Yeah.
Or you are the founder, and then you have the employee around you,
Right.
and you say you are the chief. You can do whatever, right? You say okay, let's do this.
Right.
Let's have this meeting, or let's put this thing together.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that they
have
you
the
need them right.
Exactly.
You need them to do it, but
Right.
you can.
Right. Good. Right. No. But so that's one reason. The second reason given, is God is trying to teach us proper etiquette. God is trying to teach us how to be a mensch. Did God need the angels? No.
No.
But it's teaching us that even when you don't need somebody, you should ask them to teach us humility. Okay? Right? To teach us how to be humble. And so God goes ahead and God says, right? Go, I'm going to ask the angels, let us make man.
Right.
Right? Let us make man. Why? To teach us that it's not, that you should go ahead and you should ask even people that you don't need to include them in the process. Okay? Let us make man.
So who is the us?
He's speaking to the angels. Both opinions, he's speaking to the angels.
Right.
Everyone agrees he's speaking to the angels. The question is why? Right? Okay. Is the reason in order to take away the jealousy, or is the reason to go ahead and to teach us proper etiquette and proper mode of behavior? Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I just want to make one point that it's a speech I made for my son at his bar mitzvah, who's in Bereishis. And I told him, Rashi says an important principle here, and that is that when you do something good, a lot of times people do something good, they're going to step on 15 people's toes. It's no problem because they're doing something good. Even if you're doing the best thing in the world, God said it was good, the first day was good, the second day was good, the whole creation's a beautiful thing, it's an unbelievable thing. If there'll be jealousy, it'll take away from the creation. It's like when you give a child, you have several children, and you give one a gift, and the others get nothing. What do we, chop liver? So you did a wonderful thing. You gave your child something that he can do something good with. But there's 6 lookers on who are taking a look, well, what's going on here? But that's the same thing here. God is teaching us that lesson. There shouldn't be kinah v'maseh Bereishis. There shouldn't be jealousy, even in the best thing in the world, which is the creation of the world. Still, you can't do it that it's going to end up being jealousy against you and say, how come that and this and why is this?
Yeah.
The Golos comes to an end in the merit of Rachel and Leah.
Right.
And it says so when you go to Yad Vashem, you'll see a statue of Rachel hunched over crying. God says, be comforted, be comforted.
No. Well, that's because Rachel's going to be able to bring that about.
Unbelievable. Because A, she was good looking. B, women who are that good looking tend to be, if she didn't have an ounce of jealousy over her.
Not only that, she gave up. She gave up what was hers.
Yeah,
right?
What she gave
Right. She made it that Leah wouldn't be jealous. Wouldn't be embarrassed.
But that's, can you believe that alone ends this?
Right, that's amazing.
You don't know how big that is.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Right.
There was somebody, and later on he'll tell, my son will talk about it, a person called Tamar would rather be burnt in the stake than make his father-in-law turn white. Because that's like almost like killing.
Right. Embarrassing.
The Gemara tells us that Yafes only knew when he was honoring his father what he was doing.
Right.
Because look how they run the world. His descendants do run this world.
Yeah. Mike.
Okay, so let's break this part. This one is, I think, is very fascinating too. So it says, so God created man in His image.
Okay, we didn't finish verse number 26. So let us make man in our image. What image is God?
No, He has no image.
Okay, and yet God says, let's make man in our image. And in verse number 27, it says, so God created man in His image.
So the only resemblance
not
can
possible.
be spiritual.
So it can't be physically. Okay, so good. So it's not physical. So then what is it?
Free will.
No, it's not free will.
Spiritual image. Judgment.
Well, what's the spiritual image of God?
Nobody knows that.
Okay, let's ask the following question.
Where's Menachem?
Right? What can God do?
Anything He wants.
Anything He wants.
Yeah.
Doing whatever you want, what do we call that?
Free will.
Free will.
Okay.
The image of God means that God says, I'm going to give man the gift of free will. Which means that man is going to have the option to choose to do what he wants.
Okay, so
We are not going to be angels. Angels are just the yes men of God.
They have no free will.
They have no free will. Right? There's no free will. Right? And so therefore, right, there's no free will. All creatures, by the way, do lions have free will? No. Do tigers have free will?
No.
Snakes?
No.
Scorpions?
No.
Fish?
No.
Birds?
No.
No. They're all robots. So what's the difference between an angel and an animal?
Good question.
Angel and an animal.
An angel can't move,
Sure he can. He's got wings.
can't walk.
Can't walk. Right.
He's got
He can
one-
fly.
he's got 1 foot.
Would you rather be an angel to fly or an animal to walk everywhere?
Angel.
I'd much
The
rather
angel.
fly.
What do you say?
An angel. But I'd much rather fly.
An
Fly.
angel's physical is not physical, is it?
Oh.
Angels get instructions from God.
And animals.
Not really.
Sure. So what's the difference between an angel and an animal? The animal is nothing.
Nothing.
Angel and animals both are just messengers of God. They do exactly what God tells them to do.
Animals are?
Sure, absolutely. They make absolutely no free will decisions.
So a lion
Torah
cannot
tells us
decide not to hunt, not to chase the zebra.
Right.
He cannot decide to say, no, I won't chase the zebra.
Correct.
Doesn't have any
But
free
Torah-
will.
Correct.
The Torah tells us if a wild animal habitually attacks a human, you have to kill it.
No. That okay. So now you can when we say free will, what free will means, and this is very important. What free will means, it does not mean whether you're going to eat chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream. Okay, that's not what free will is all about. What free will is all about is making moral decisions. Okay, learning to make moral decisions. Okay, so for example, if the chocolate ice cream is kosher and the vanilla ice cream is not kosher, then it's a free will decision whether you're going to eat the chocolate or vanilla. If both of them are kosher, and both of them have the same caloric value, and you're going to eat the same amount of chocolate or vanilla ice cream, right? Whether you choose chocolate or vanilla is not what we call where you're exercising your free will decision.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It's not a moral choice. When we say free will, what that means is it's a place where you have to make a moral decision. And when you go ahead and you make a moral decision, only human beings have that ability. So, for example, the lion is zeroing in on the zebra to eat the zebra. The lion doesn't think, well, if I kill the zebra, the baby zebra is not going to have a mommy. And that won't be nice. The lion says, there's dinner. I'm hungry. Sounds good. Right? That's not a free will decision. He's just doing what he's programmed to do.
Right.
And he can't make a moral decision.
Right.
The only creatures in this world that can make a moral decision are all the ones sitting in this room. And all the other ones that are not sitting in this room. Right? You obviously made the right moral decision by showing up tonight. And everyone else made the wrong moral decision of not showing up tonight. Right? But it's all about making the right moral decision. Right? Showing up and doing the right thing. Right? That's what it's about. Right? That's how you go ahead. And that's how you're going ahead and you're making the right moral decision. And that's what it means in our image, in the image of God, is that we have moral choices to make. And every decision in life has to be framed in the decision of, is this what God wants me to do? Is this what God does not want me to do? And then I make it, then I have my free will to decide whether I'm going to do it or not. And now I'm going to tell you something amazing. You want to hear something just so super cool? Like super cool?
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay. This is where you take it. This is like I'm putting a piece of TNT into your mouth, and I'm lighting a fuse, and it's about to blow up. Listen to this idea. Amazing idea. The Talmud said a statement that I never understood. And then I actually read what the Talmud was saying, and it blew my mind apart. The Talmud says the only person who has free will in this world is somebody who studies Torah. If you don't study Torah, you're a slave. Now, what I thought was quite humorous and quite funny is, what does everyone tell people that oh, you're going to study with the rabbi? You're turning into one of those robots. Right? You just do what God tells you to do. Right? You ever hear that? I don't know if you've heard that already. You know, you're studying Torah now you're right, though, now you're on the goody good list, right? Now, right? You have to ask the rabbi whether you can do that now, right? You ever heard that? Right? That's right. That's okay. Right? That's what they right to make fun of the yeshiva boys, right? Because they're sitting and studying Torah and they go on to do what the rabbi tells them to do, what the Torah says they can do. Says the Talmud, the only person who makes a free will decision in their life is the person who studies Torah.
Why?
Meaning, the only person who is exercising their free will, who is acting godly, right? Who is acting human, is the person who studies Torah. And I'm going to explain to you why. If you don't study Torah, how do you make a decision whether you want to do it or not?
Whether it's right or wrong.
And then if you don't study Torah,
Yes.
but how do you know what's right or wrong?
You don't.
You don't. So how do you make a decision?
Expediency.
Whatever makes me whatever makes me feel better, right? Whatever. We kind of put all those things on the thing, right? Right? How do I decide? Right? Whatever makes me feel better. Did you exercise your free will? No. So what are you then if you don't exercise your free will?
An animal.
Ooh, ouch!
Like an animal.
Like an animal. Right? Okay, now, even worse than an animal. You're insulting the animals. Why?
They don't have a
Because an animal doesn't have the capacity to make a free will decision. A human being who has the capacity to make a free will decision and doesn't use their free will, that's the most criminal thing a person can do. Right? Yet somebody who studies Torah, so what do? A person who studies Torah. So they now know what God wants them to do. Now, once they know what God wants them to do, now they can make the decision whether they want to listen or not. But the first thing to listen to whether you want to do what God wants you to do or not is to know what God wants you to do. Right? You following me? Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
So the only way to make a free will decision is by knowledge. Learn what God wants you to do. Then you can decide whether you're going to do it or not. But the only way is to first learn what God wants you to do. And that's why the only way to exercise your free will decision, the only way, is to first study Torah. And then you can decide whether you're going to make it right or wrong. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that there's no such thing as an innate godliness. You have to study Torah to be godly.
What do you mean innate godliness?
Well, people are just born, they're not Jewish. They have no experience with the Torah.
So how do they know right and wrong?
Somebody living in China, for example, doesn't know the Torah.
Right.
But they know right from wrong.
No. They know what their parents taught them is right or wrong. Now, whether that's right or wrong, only right. So we'll have to measure that up, right? Measure that up against what the Torah says.
But they generally keep the Noahide laws. I mean, they're
maybe that may keep because we tamed the world. Remember, before Abraham showed up, the world was a place of The world was a place of barbaric people, busy eating other people. Right? We taught them that there's a God and there's a way to act. And that's what we understand. Before monotheism, before Judaism came about, that's what the whole world was about.
Right.
We changed the world. You understand, without the Jewish people in the world, what this world would look like? It would make ISIS look like a birthday park on the wall, right? And then it'd be like a birthday walk in the park, right? Because because even with Torah, people managed to get to the level of that, right? But Judaism brought civilization to the world. Right? You understand that, right? You understand what it means to be a Jew, right? You understand that Judaism brought civilization to the world. And not only that, do you know how many more gifts we have to bring to the world? There's so many more gifts we can bring to the world, right? And we just have to learn. We just have to learn them to be able to teach them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we have.
So all the gifts are contained in Torah?
Absolutely.
So if you study Torah, you learn the gifts.
Yep. And then once you learn the gifts, then you got to figure out, okay, well, am I going to use them or not? Right? What the right way to use them is. You following? But if you don't have them gifts, you're in deep trouble. Yeah.
Rabbi, so before Noah's time,
Yeah.
there was no 5 books of Moses.
Correct.
Torah. People had themselves to do what? Who were they guiding from it?
That's a great question. Okay, so the answer is like this. There always were righteous people in the world. There always were righteous people. Let me repeat that again. There always were righteous people in the world.
How they learned?
No, so Adam lived for 930 years.
Okay.
Right? And he was created in the image of God. Right? He was created by God. He was a prophet. And when Adam was roughly 600 years old, a little less than 600 years old, there was a great man named Methuselah that was born. Methuselah was a very righteous man. And then when
They learned
we learned from Adam, and then you go ahead and then when in year 1056, so when Methuselah was a bright, young 500 years old, Noah was born. Right. Right. Again, so you had, and then Noah had a son, right, Aver, right. Shem would have Shem and his son, right, Aver, right, and then you go ahead and then Noah, right, and when Noah, when he was a ripe old age of, and he was born in 1056, when he was 900 years old, right, there was another man born named Avram, right, right. So there always were righteous people in the world. Right? People in the world always had an opportunity to know what is right and what is wrong. People make choices on whether they want to learn what is right and wrong. But there always is an opportunity to know right from wrong. And the gift that the Jewish people brought to the world was that we took responsibility for the world, and we accepted upon ourselves the responsibility to teach the world right and wrong. Right? When you're part of the Jewish people, what you're saying is, it is my responsibility to teach the world how to act.
Oh.
That's right. That is my responsibility. Ours, mine, and yours, 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 and yours. Everyone's. Right? It's our responsibility to teach the world.
So
right?
You have to study Torah.
And so before you teach the world, you have to know what's right and wrong. So how do you know what's right and wrong? We have a gift called the Torah. And we have the Torah. We're able to know what is right and what is wrong. And then we can teach the rest of the world.
Torah, there were righteous people like Adam.
Yeah.
Who knew.
They were prophets.
They knew what was right.
Sure.
No, they didn't know all the laws in the Torah. They knew the laws in the Torah that they had to go by. The 7 Noahide,
Right.
what you'll call the 7 Noahide laws.
7 Noahide laws were
And then
given.
they
6 at that
traditionally
point.
They transferred it to people who now then told their great people.
And how do you know Noah learned Torah? What did God tell Noah to take on the ark?
Kosher animals.
Kosher animals and non-kosher animals. How many kosher animals?
7 of each.
No, 7 pairs.
7 pairs. I should say.
14.
Right.
And how many non-kosher animals?
2.
2. Right, 1 pair. Right? And how does Noah know what animals were kosher, which animals were not kosher?
God told him.
Noah learned Torah. Right? Right? So what happens is, right, so the information was there. The person just had to go and access it, or care enough to access it to find out what they... So nobody, because really, at the end of the day, people really don't care what God says. They're only interested in what their... Stockbroker, right? The stockbroker, at the accountant, right? What tells them to do, right? Right. This is right. But we have a moral message for the world, right? And that's what we have. We have free. Yeah.
So the story of Adam and Hava came after these 7 days?
Yeah. Actually, not after the 7 days, in day number 6.
Number 6. Okay.
Okay, the day that we're describing now.
Okay, but he said that God made man in his image.
Right.
the image of God. He created him, male and female. He created them, and then he blessed them afterwards.
Right.
But then the Adam and Eve story started, and he took the rib from the.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. That's chapter 2.
I know, but I want to say, there was no man created that time. There was only Adam and Hava created.
That's man.
What about him? The man.
He's man.
This is man and woman
Remember, because originally man and woman were created as one.
as one.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Oh, you're right.
One, you literally mean one.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
It says in two places. One is in the details.
That's the coming attractions.
What? Coming attractions. Okay. Yeah.
So the Jewish mission in the world, in the Torah, you'd say, as a mezuzah, remind us, to teach, Torah to your children.
Right.
And then, so the Jewish mission, according to you, say, today you accept my covenant, you become my Amsebula, my treasure possession, and through you the whole universe will know. But it means that we are charged with the mission to teach.
Correct, to teach the world.
Right.
When are we going to go out, by the way? When are we going to go out and teach the world how to serve God?
Mashiach.
When Mashiach comes. So what is our job? October 29th? What's today? October 30th, 2017. What's our job today?
Teach yourselves.
To teach ourselves so we can become good teachers for the rest of the world. Because as soon as we go ahead and we teach ourselves what the right thing to do is, right, then the Mashiach can come. Right? But first we need to do our job, right, of going ahead, and of teaching the world, teaching ourselves so we can go ahead and we can teach the world.
Isaiah says that, doesn't it? It says that 10 non-Jews will...
Right, that's right. He says at the end of the day, he says exactly what's going to happen. 10 non-Jews are going to come and hang on to our tzitzis.
Yes.
Right, and say, teach me Torah. Right, because that's going to be, that's what we signed up for. We saved the world. Right. That's what took place.
So the first 6 days is the days of creation.
Right.
This is how everything created.
Right.
How this creation became a ball game that everybody stopped playing the ball.
What do you think?
How did it start?
Okay. The 6 days of creation.
Right.
In order.
Right.
Okay, but what is the point of creation?
The point of creation is man. Right here. Day number 6 is the point of creation.
Okay, but the animals running around, that has nothing to do with man.
Correct. And it's very important for man. How am I going to have a barbecue if I don't have a cow running around?
How am I supposed to learn from a lion, to be honest with you?
So the Talmud says we learn something from every animal in creation. King David, by the way, King David said, I understood why God created every animal. He says, the only animal I didn't understand was a spider. That's what King David said. And you know what happened?
Why?
You got bit by a spider?
No. No, King David was running away from Saul. And Saul was hot pursuit.
And the spider
and King David ducked into a cave, and a spider came and quickly spun a web over the entrance, a thick web. Saul comes by and says, nobody in there, because the spider just spun a web. Right? Because you see the weapon, it's been there for a long time. And you know what?
And he realized why.
And at that point, then Saul moves on. King David gets saved. You know what King David said?
That's why there's a spider.
That's why he says God's wisdom is beyond any man's wisdom.
There you go.
Every animal in the world, we learn some. Right? We learn from cats. Right? Ants are diligent. Right? An ant from the day he's born to the day he dies, working. Right? You got to work. Right? You learn from a cat cleanliness. Every animal has something to teach us. We just have to be wise enough to learn. Right? That's right. That's all. Let's go back to the same thing. It means the information is out there. The information is in front of us. Right? Our job is to do what? Is to learn the lessons, so we can teach the world. Right, my friends. This is what it's all about. God creates man in His image. He says, my friends, the most important thing you got to know is you have free will, and how you exercise your free will is what your life is made up of. Your entire life is strung together of all your free will choices that you made. And before you can make a free will decision, what do you have to do? Study. I once had somebody who was 80 years old and began to study Torah. And he said to me, he says, Rabbi, My first 80 years of my life, I wasted them.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I said, what do you mean you wasted them? He says, well, I didn't know Torah, so I never made a free will decision in my entire life. He says, now for the first time in my life, I can make a free will decision.
Because otherwise, you just operate on instinct.
You just do it right. We're programmed. We do what we do, right, without making the free will decisions.
And justify.
Right, then we retroactively we justify what we do.
Yeah.
Right, and in fact, it's fascinating because if you don't have Torah, you end up serving yourself. You're a slave to yourself.
Yeah.
Right, it's an amazing thing. And you know what the most amazing thing is? You know how good the evil inclination is? He convinces you that you're the free person, and the guy who's studying Torah, he's the slave. Right? You following?
Yeah.
And what's the reality? It's the other way around. Right? The guy who's studying Torah is the free person. The guy who doesn't have Torah is the slave. It's one of the most incredible, right? It's one of the most incredible switcheroos, right, that exist out there. Right? We go ahead and we think we're so smart, we think we're so brilliant and so successful, and we're the smart people. Right?
Even Trump is
right? It's just amazing. Right? And what is it? At the end of the day, right, God created us in His image. He gave us a gift called free will. And it's our choice what we do with that free will and how we use that free will. That's our choice. And how we choose to use it is what we're all about.
So most people who know and who study the Torah will make the right choice.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you why. Once you study the Torah,
it becomes easier.
Once you know, right? Well, so first of all, right. So the Torah, the Talmud says Jewish people by nature are very, very not nice people to be around.
Who said that?
God.
God said that?
Yeah, the Torah. Yeah, the Talmud.
That's a stiff neck.
And the Talmud, no, but it's a stiff neck. He made a stiff neck on purpose, not stiff neck, but brash. Right? We're just not nice people.
Hubris.
That's one of the things.
Explain more.
That's what the Talmud says. But the Talmud says God always creates the cure before the disease. So you know what He did? He created the Torah before we're born. Right? So we just have to remember to access the Torah.
Before He created man.
Right? Before He created man.
Before He created the universe.
Right, He created Torah.
Right.
And in order to go, sometimes you see people that are just so in your face, they're just so not nice. The answer is they're missing Torah. Right? Because Torah is the cure for their behavior. And that's really our job. Right? Our job is to learn to be a mensch. Not to learn to be a godly person. Right? To learn to be this exquisite human being. Right? Would you ever say anything to ever, God forbid, embarrass somebody? Right? Would you ever do something to cause somebody to be embarrassed? Right? My father mentioned this before, right? Right? The Talmud says, right? The Talmud says that Tamar, right? Yehuda, who's Judah, right? Jacob's son, right? His daughter-in-law would rather let herself be burnt at the stake, right? Than to go ahead and to embarrass her father-in-law. Right? The Talmud says there was a husband and wife that used to go ahead and deliver food to poor people, and they wanted to do it. They didn't want to embarrass the poor person, so they would kind of sneak up and do it. And one time the person was waiting for them. They snuck up, they put it by the door, and the person ran and opened the door. And what happened was there was a hot oven in the courtyard, and they both jumped into the hot oven, so the person wouldn't find them, in order not to embarrass the person. Right? How careful we have to be for other people, right? For their honor, right? How careful we have to be for how people interact, how we interact with other people, right? And that's part of our free will, right? That's using and how we choose to use it, right? And choose to interact with people, right? That's where our free will comes into, and learning how to use our free will properly is what the world is all about.
So our actions should we should reflect the image of God since we.
So it's very good. So actions have to reflect the image of God, which is that we make those free will decisions on how we act and how we behave.
So we can
and what we do.
God's behavior.
So we can emulate God.
Yeah.
Right? And it gets even more than this, but free will is really where it starts. Right? Meaning that I have to start learning to make free will decisions. Right? And in order to make a free will decision, remember what's the first thing you got to do? Study Torah. You got to know what God wants you to do. And you can decide whether you're going to do it or not. But if you don't know what God wants you to do, you're missing the boat.
Right.
Right? So the first thing you got to do is you got to study Torah.
Okay, Rabbi, so he created animals, he created humans.
Yeah.
So what, he sent a million cows at one time?
Sure.
Or he sent one and...
No. He created the cows, he created 2 million. So I'd have enough steak for me. 2 million cows, 1 million zebras, 1 million elephants, 1 million, right, all sorts of different animals.
It was in order. It was in order.
Yeah, no, none of that. In very important order because, right, again, right, because eventually you're gonna come to the food triangle. Right, you're going to come right to the food pyramid, right? You have to know which animals feed on which animals feed on which animals that kind of just move it up, right? What it needs to do, right? So all those things, right? So God created a world, an incredible, sophisticated world, right? And just how the whole world is just. Somebody told me there were over 200 things that if it wouldn't be just so, the world couldn't exist.
Yes.
Okay? There are over 200 things that if it weren't just so, the world couldn't exist.
There's no scientific reason why those numbers are exactly the way they are. That's really that's one of the fruits of God. You have 200 the constants in the world that the world runs on. And if the constants were a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, the world couldn't exist.
Exactly.
But they don't know why is this constant.
I just saw an article that says that.
Yeah. So then
it debunks their theory that.
No, but then the Yetzirah, you witnesses that some garbage, maybe 200 things just happen by themselves.
Man, really,
even that can't.
right. Again, remember, if the world, again, how far away is the sun from the Earth?
93 million miles.
93. What would be 93 million and 10 miles away from the Earth?
Well, 10 miles might not make that big.
We'd freeze.
Right, we'd freeze. Right, okay, 100 miles, 1,000 miles could be.
But I'm saying there are constants that some things are much more subtle.
Right. There's so many different things. I go ahead and say, I said, one of the amazing things that I love is ice.
Yeah.
Ice is one of the most amazing things.
Yeah, I like ice.
Because the rule in science is, right, the colder something is, the more dense it is. It shrinks. Right? The hotter something is, the more it expands. There's only one thing that breaks that rule.
Water.
And it's only water at 32 degrees.
Right.
Right? Because water, if you have water in a glass, 30 degree water and 40 degree water and 50 degree water, which water's on the surface?
What would you say?
If you have water in a glass,
Yeah.
some it's 40 degrees, some it's 50 degrees.
50 degrees is on top.
Why?
Because
It's warmer,
warm,
right?
Yeah.
Good, excellent, right? And what about 38 degree water? Where's the 38 degree water?
It's
On the bottom of
on the
that.
bottom.
And where's the 36 degree water?
On the bottom.
On the bottom. And 32 degree water?
On the top.
All of a sudden at 32 degrees, this magic happens. And all of a sudden this ice floats. Right? Because the carbons lock arms. Right? And it becomes light and it floats up. Can I ask you a question? And by the way, and then you have different cold. You have ice that could be 32 degrees. You have ice that could be 0 degrees. Mm-hmm. Right? So the ice at 0 degrees is on top or on bottom?
It sinks.
Bottom, right? It's on the bottom, right? Further than 32 degree, right? Now, let me ask you a question. So what's going to make it that this magic has to happen at 32 degrees, that this ice floats?
Otherwise, it'd be snowball Earth.
Otherwise, the Earth would ice over.
Yeah.
Why? Because if the lake froze
From the bottom up.
from the bottom up, so the first year, right, the ice would go on the bottom. And what happened to all the stuff in the bottom of the lake?
Dies.
It dies. And what happened to everything living in the lake?
Dies.
Right? And then in order for the ice to actually thaw, you wouldn't just have to thaw the top of the water. You have to get all the way, if you're at 100 feet of lake water, you have to warm up all the lake water so the ice in the bottom would melt. Which wouldn't happen. So every year you just add another layer of ice, another layer of ice, until the whole world would ice over.
Right.
So in order for the world to exist, God has to make this magic.
Designer chemical.
Right? Right? That all of a sudden, ice at 32 degrees, it floats.
And it provides a blanket.
And it applies a blanket for the stuff. I just, right? The only thing in the world that acts that way. My friends.
Mysteriously magic.
Not mysteriously.
Not magic.
Yeah, not magic. Right. We know the magician. Alrighty, folks. Everyone have a wonderful evening. See you all. Same bat time, same bat station.
Thank you, Rabbi.